The war had come suddenly, like a storm with no warning. Earth's skies turned red as the Valari Empire arrived in force. They were tall, silver-skinned aliens with sharp eyes and cold hearts. They saw humans as weak and unworthy of space, and they attacked without mercy. Earth's colonies fell quickly, one after another. The defense fleets were destroyed. Hope began to fade. One ship remained, ironclad Donna, heavy warship still fighting under the command of Captain Raylan. Cross. He had survived more battles than most, and even though the odds were against him, he refused to surrender. On his ship, locked deep within a secure chamber, was a strange prisoner, Serana, a noblewoman from the Valari race. She'd been captured during a failed boarding attempt, and though she was their enemy, Raylan had kept her alive. Something about her felt different. She didn't insult them. She didn't make demands. She sat quietly, watching the stars from the window, always calm. One day, as they floated in the shadow of a shattered moon, Raylan sat beside her, tired from long shifts, his mind heavy. He looked at her and saw the way her glowing blue eyes followed him. He smirked and said, "You keep watching me like that, I might just marry you." It was meant to be a joke, something light to break the silence. But Serana turned her head slowly and looked at him with such gentle surprise. Her eyes widened slightly, and then her lips curved into a soft smile. "Truly?" she asked. Her voice light like wind through glass. Raylan blinked, confused. He chuckled awkwardly and turned away. "Just a joke, princess," he muttered. But she didn't stop smiling, and something in her gaze had changed. Before Raylan could think more about it, alarms rang out across the ship. The enemy had found them. A fleet of Valari warships closed in fast, dozens of destroyers, 2 cruisers, and a massive fortress ship. The odds were hopeless. Raylan rushed to the bridge, barking orders. Crew scrambled to go dark, powering down weapons and hiding behind asteroids, but it was too late. They had been spotted. Message came through, and the face on the screen froze everyone in place. It was Admiral Calexis, Serana's older sister, and one of the most feared leaders in the Valari Empire. She looked directly at Serana and ordered her to step away from the humans. "You were taken," she said coldly. "We will retrieve you. The human dies." But Serana stepped forward, proud and calm. "No," she said. "He is my chosen bondmate." Raylan nearly choked. "Wait, what?" Calexis narrowed her eyes. "That is not possible." "By our custom," Serana replied. He spoke the words, "I accept." Raylan stared in shock. All he had done was joke. But now it had triggered some ancient Valari tradition. The crew didn't know what to do. Even the ship's AI remained silent. Calex's face turned dark. "Then you are no longer." "Valari," she said to her sister, "you have chosen filth." The fleet around them prepared to fire. Raylan stood tall, red alert. "All hands, brace for battle," he shouted. "If we die, we make them bleed first." But before the first missile launched, Serana moved to the ship's core control panel. Her hands glowed silver and she pressed them against the interface. Energy surged through the walls. The lights flickered. Raylan shouted, asking what she was doing, but she didn't answer right away. The ship trembled. Then she looked at him and said, "I will protect you. I am giving you something no human has ever had." The ship screamed to life. Systems rebooted. Power surged through every weapon. Human tech fused with alien energy. Shields shimmered like diamond. The engines howled like beasts. The ironclad Dawn was reborn. Raylan looked around in awe. Ship had become something new, faster, stronger, alive. Serana stood beside him, glowing, her eyes fierce. "Now," she said, "show them what your people can do." Raylan took his seat and pointed at the enemy flagship. "Target the lead ship," he said, voice like steel. "Fire." And with that, the battle truly began. The ironclad Dawn roared through the stars like it had been reborn. The engines burned with a new kind of fire, brighter and faster than anything the crew had seen. Captain Raylan Cross stood on the bridge, eyes fixed on the battlefield ahead. The Valari ships were still firing, but now Their shots bounced off the ship's new shimmering shields. Serana, the Valari noblewoman, stood at the core panel, her hands glowing as she continued feeding her strange power into the ship's systems. Her face was calm, but sweat ran down her silver skin, and her breathing grew heavier with every second. Raylan barked out commands, his voice steady. The gunners responded faster than ever, targeting enemy vessels with perfect accuracy. Plasma cannons tore through Valari cruisers like paper. One by one, the enemy ships exploded in flashes of fire and metal. The crew of the ironclad Dawn couldn't believe what they were seeing. They had fought Valari ships before, but they had never beaten them like this. Something had changed. The ship wasn't just stronger, it was smarter, faster, more alive. It responded to Raylan's orders before they were fully spoken, like it could feel his intent. As the last enemy cruiser exploded, Raylan glanced at Serana. She collapsed to her knees, her energy nearly gone. He rushed to her side and caught her before she hit the floor. Her body trembled, and her eyes fluttered open. "Still wish to marry me, Captain?" she asked weakly, her lips forming a tired smile. Raylan looked at her, unsure whether to laugh or panic. "You need rest," he said. "That power, how did you even do that?" Serana leaned her head on his shoulder. "I am Valari royal blood. My energy can awaken ships, but it is not meant to be used this way. I pushed too far." He helped her to medbay, where the doctor scanned her and confirmed what she had said. Her energy reserves were low, dangerously so. She needed time to recover, but time was the one thing they didn't have. Outside, the remaining Valari fleet had fled. Admiral Calixus had vanished into the shadows of space, leaving a warning behind. Through a short transmission, "This is not over. I will take back what is mine," she had said. The crew watched the stars in silence. Victory had come, but it had a cost. Raylan stood in the war room, looking at the damage reports. The ship was stronger, but not unbreakable. It couldn't survive another battle like that without help. Earth was still in danger, and the Valari would come back stronger. He needed allies, and he knew where to find them. Deep beyond Earth's known territories was a hidden outpost called Thraxis, home to outcasts, warlords, and rebels, humans and aliens who had escaped the Valari's grip. They hated the Empire, but they didn't trust Earth either. Raylan made the call. He set course for Thraxis, hoping to form an alliance. Serana, still weak, came to the bridge and nodded in approval. "They will fear me," she said softly. "But if they believe you hold my loyalty, they may listen." Raylan turned toward the stars. The journey to Thraxis would be dangerous, but he had no choice. Earth was running out of time. So was Serana. As the ironclad Dawn entered warp space, Raylan sat alone for a moment, thinking about everything that had happened. He remembered the way Serana had smiled at his joke, the way she had stood up to her sister, the way she had nearly died to protect his ship. What had started as a small joke was no longer a joke at all. The bond between them was real. Whether or not he understood it yet didn't matter. What mattered now was survival and what lay ahead. The stars outside the ship shifted as the ironclad Dawn exited warp space near the edge of the outlaw zone. Ahead was Thraxis, a massive broken moon turned into a hidden outpost built deep within ancient asteroid fields. It was a place where rules were forgotten, where those who defied empires or betrayed governments came to hide, trade, and fight. Raylan Cross had been there once before, years ago, back when Earth still held respect in the stars. But now, he returned not as a diplomat or traitor, but as a man seeking allies in a galaxy that wanted his people gone. As the ironclad Dawn approached the landing zone, dozens of turrets locked onto the ship, warning them not to get too close. Raylan opened a channel and spoke firmly, saying he needed an audience with the Council of Flame. That name still held weight in places like Thraxis. And after a long pause, permission was granted. When they landed, the smell of oil, rust, and smoke filled the air. Alien mercenaries watched with suspicious eyes, and rogue humans in patched armor leaned against broken ships. Everyone was armed. Everyone was dangerous. Raylan walked with confidence, flanked by two officers, But it was Serana who drew the most attention. Whispers followed her as she passed Valari Noble, War Prize. Traitor people stared with confusion, fear, and hatred. But she walked tall, her silver skin glowing under the artificial lights. She wore a black cloak over her battle uniform, and she kept close to Raylan, her presence silent but powerful. Inside the council chamber, the air grew tense. 12 leaders sat in a circle: humans, insectoids, reptilian warriors, and even an AI core. These were warlords, exiles, pirates, and survivors. Raylan stood before them and explained Earth's situation. He told them about the invasion, the fall of colonies, and the battles that were still to come. He spoke of how the Valari saw humanity as filth, how Earth would be wiped out, and how their war would not stop at one planet. But it was when he showed them the new ironclad Dawn, upgraded, infused with Valari energy, that they leaned in. With interest, he played footage of the last battle, a ship moving faster than physics should allow. Enemy ships torn apart like paper. And then he introduced Serana, explaining how her bond had changed everything. One warlord, a brutish lizard-like creature named Varix, slammed his hand on the table and shouted that no Valari could be trusted. "She is their blood," he growled. "She is a spy, a weapon wrapped in skin." Serana stepped forward calmly and raised her voice. "I was born into the Empire, yes, but I do not serve it. I serve the one who claimed me with his words, not his chains. I chose him, not your kind's approval." The room fell silent. Her words rang with something deeper, something old, something royal. Strange tension filled the air, but no one spoke against her again. Raylan saw the way they looked at her now, not just with hate, but with caution, even respect. Another council member, a cybernetic human named Cora, asked what Raylan wanted. He answered without hesitation. "I need ships, fighters, crews, who know how to hurt the Valari. I don't care what banners they once flew. If Earth falls, the Empire won't stop. It will come for every world that doesn't kneel," the council argued. Some wanted to help, some wanted to wait. A vote was taken. It was close to close, but in the end, the alliance was made. 3 fleets of outlaw ships sold, scarred, but deadly, would follow Raylan to Earth. They didn't trust him, not fully, but they trusted his hate for the Valari. They trusted his fire, and they feared what his ship had become. As the group prepared to leave, Serana pulled Raylan aside and whispered that something felt wrong. Her senses, trained since childhood to detect danger, warned her they had been followed. He nodded grimly. It didn't surprise him. Thraxis was no safe haven. And as their ships departed, none of them saw the small Valari probe hiding in the shadows of a nearby rock, blinking quietly, sending out a signal across the dark. As the fleet left Thraxis and crossed into the Orion frontier, tension grew inside the command bridge of the ironclad Dawn. Captain Raylan Cross stood near the window, watching the stars with narrowed eyes. Beside him, Serana sat quietly, still, recovering from her last connection with the ship's systems. Their allied fleet's 3 full wings of outlaw vessels flew in tight formation, their hulls marked with different colors, shapes, and scars from battles past. These weren't perfect ships, but they were fast, and their captains knew how to fight dirty. Still, something felt wrong. The space ahead looked quiet, too quiet, and Raylan had survived enough ambushes to know when a trap was coming. Shifted in her seat, her eyes glowing faintly. She whispered that she could feel something movement, but distant, like shadows waiting to strike. Raylan ordered all ships to scan the region, but no signals came back. Then, just as they passed, between 2 large asteroids near a dying star, everything happened at once. From behind the rocks, massive energy cannons activated ancient Valari weapons planted on asteroids. Hidden and powered by the sun's radiation, beams of blue light shot out, tearing through one of the lead ships in an instant. It exploded, pieces scattering like burning metal rain. Then the rest of the Valari fleet, uncloaked ships with black armor and red lights, surrounded them from all sides. Dozens of cruisers and stealth frigates moved in fast. Raylan's fleet was boxed in, caught like prey in a cage. Alarms screamed on the ironclad Dawn as Raylan shouted orders telling Allied ships to break formation and return fire. The battle turned into chaos. Laser blasts and plasma fire painted the darkness red and gold. Ships dodged between asteroids, trying to avoid the cannon fire, but the Valari had set the trap well. One rebel vessel tried to break through, but was torn apart by 3 enemy interceptors. The outlaw captains fought hard, but they were losing. Raylan had to make a choice: retreat and save what remained, or push through the trap and risk everything to break the line. He looked at Serana. Her eyes were tired, but she nodded. "Go forward," she said. "That is what humans do, yes?" He turned back to the controls and gave the command. The ironclad Dawn dove down, sliding under 2 enemy cruisers. Its weapons lit up, tearing through enemy hulls. The crew held their breath as the ship spun between falling debris and blazing engines. Then Raylan saw the answer of gravity well. Forming near the dying star, they angled their approach just right. They could slingshot around it, using its pull to break past the enemy lines. It was insane, dangerous, but also their only chance. He shouted the plan to the fleet, and only half responded. The rest were either destroyed or too damaged to follow. Raylan pushed the ship's engines to full power. The gravity from the red star pulled at them, bending space and dragging them close. The ship shook violently. Lights flickered. Everyone was thrown forward as the force hit them. Then, with a sudden burst, the ironclad Dawn broke free, flying past the Valari blockade at impossible speed. 2 rebel ships followed, then a third. Behind them, enemy vessels tried to catch up, but couldn't match the speed through the gravity pull. As the ship cleared the danger zone, Raylan looked back at the burning battlefield. Half the Allied fleet was gone. One of the bravest captains had rammed his ship into a Valari destroyer to give them cover. Raylan clenched his jaw. They had survived, but at a great cost. In the medbay, Serana lay weak, her energy drained again. Her hand trembled as Raylan held it. She whispered, "We must warn Earth. They know where you're going." Raylan nodded. The Valari knew everything now. Someone at Theraxis had betrayed them. But there was no turning back. Earth was close, and the final battle was coming. As the ship flew toward home, the stars around them felt colder, sharper, like they too were holding their breath. As the ironclad Dawn and the few remaining Allied ships came out of warp near Earth, Captain Raylan Cross stood silently at the front window, fists clenched. What he saw chilled him to his bones. Above the blue planet hung a massive Valari fleet larger than any he had faced before. Dozens of sleek destroyers, black-armored warships, and towering fortress-class carriers floated like giants above Earth's atmosphere. Fires were already burning across the surface, cities glowing with smoke and flame. Earth's defense grid was nearly gone. The orbital platforms had been shattered. The few remaining human ships were holding position near the moon, clearly waiting. For a miracle, Raylan knew then that they were it. The battered ironclad Dawn, its systems still damaged from the last ambush, had become Earth's last hope. His crew waited for orders, faces pale, but ready. The outlaw captains that had followed him stared in disbelief, but none turned back. They knew what was coming. They knew this was the final fight. Raylan opened a channel to all ships and spoke, clearly, without fear. "We didn't come this far to watch Earth die. We may not have many ships left, but we've got something they'll never understand. Rage, courage, and nothing left to lose. Let's show them what humanity does when we're cornered." With that, the fleet moved. The ironclad Dawn led the charge, slicing through the void like a spear. Enemy fighters rushed to meet them, and the sky filled with the thunder of war. Lasers and plasma blasts painted the darkness red and white. Ships exploded in every direction. The rebels flew with fury, fighting like wild animals, protecting their den. Raylan's ship tore through to enemy frigates and aimed straight for the main battle line. On the bridge, Serana stood again, still weak, but determined. She linked her energy into the ship once more, boosting the shields and targeting systems. Her voice was soft, but steady as she guided the crew. aim for their command ships, cut off their leaders, make them scatter. The ship moved faster than before, dodging enemy fire like it could see the future. Raylan guided it straight toward the heart of the Volari formation, hoping to split their forces apart. One by one, his allies followed, blasting open a narrow route path. Explosions shook space as enemy ships collapsed under fire. But just when it seemed the tide was turning, a new figure appeared on the battlefield. A huge warship, 10 times the size of the ironclad Dawn, dropped from orbit Admiral Calexis, had arrived. Her flagship, the Vexera, was covered in dark plates and glowing red lights. It moved slowly, like a planet drifting across the sky, but every step it took meant death. One beam from its main cannon destroyed an entire rebel cruiser in seconds. The battlefield went quiet for a moment as Calexis opened a channel. Her face appeared on every screen, calm and cruel. "Raylan Cross," she said, "this is over. Surrender Serana to me and I will spare your people." Raylan's jaw tightened. He looked at Serana, who shook her head silently. He turned back to the screen and replied, "I'd rather marry her in hell than kneel to you in peace." The connection cut. Calexis's guns powered up. The Vexera unleashed a storm of energy, hammering the ironclad Dawn with force so strong. It cracked the shields. The hull sparked and screamed. Decks caught fire. Crew members were thrown from their posts. Serana cried out as she tried to hold the energy connection, her body trembling from the overload. Raylan called for emergency power, pushing the engines past their limits, forcing the ship forward. He ordered all remaining fighters to focus on the Vexera to find any weak spot. But the enemy ship was too strong. Each hit they landed barely scratched its armor. Their own ship couldn't take much more. The bridge lights flickered. Explosions rocked the floor beneath them. Serana fell to her knees, her face pale, her hands burned with silver light. Raylan caught her again, holding her close as the ship shook around them. She looked up at him, her voice barely a whisper. "We have one more chance," she said, "but it will cost everything." Raylan stared into her eyes. He knew what she meant. And still, he nodded. Earth was below them, broken but breathing. Behind them were the last fighters of a dying resistance. In front of them was a ship built to crush worlds. If they were going to win, it had to happen now. The battlefield around Earth burned like a second sun as the ironclad Dawn took another direct hit from the massive Volari flagship, the Vexera. The ship trembled, metal groaned, and lights across the control deck dimmed to emergency red. Fires raged in the lower decks. Crew members scrambled to put them out, and the shields were almost gone. Captain Raylan Cross stood firm at the center of the bridge, refusing to fall. He gritted his teeth, staring at the monster of a ship that hovered ahead, raining death down upon them and Earth. The outlaw fleet was nearly wiped out, their ships torn apart one by one. The battle had reached its final moment. They had no more tricks, no more time. Serana lay weak at his side, her body trembling, her energy nearly spent. She had already given so much of herself to awaken the ship, to push it beyond its limits. But now she had nothing left to give unless she gave it all. With smoke swirling around them, alarms howling, and the crew shouting over the chaos, Serana touched Raylan's hand with fingers that barely had strength to move. Her voice was soft, almost fading. "We cannot win as we are," she said. "But together, we can become something greater." Raylan didn't understand at first. Then she looked into his eyes with tears glowing silver. She explained that Volari, bondmates, could merge in spirit and body, something no human had ever done. If he truly meant the words he once said, even as a joke, and accepted her, they could complete the ancient joining. It was a dangerous act. No turning back. It could kill them both. But it might also give them one final chance. Raylan's heart pounded. He had faced death before, but this was different. This was choosing to become something more, to trust a bond deeper than blood. He looked into her eyes, saw her fear and her hope, and he whispered, "Yes." Serana smiled weakly, and as their hands joined, a pulse of light spread through the ship. The deck glowed beneath them. Panels opened on their own. The entire ironclad Dawn reacted. It wasn't just technology anymore. It was alive, and it was listening. The ship's systems merged with their bond, creating a living warship, human will fused with Valari energy. Serana's silver light and Raylan's burning drive became one. Their memories, thoughts, and hearts intertwined. The crew gasped as the lights turned pure white. The hull of the ship glowed like a newborn star. The engine screamed to life again, stronger than ever. Weapons realigned, faster and sharper. Shields returned, brighter and harder than before. The ironclad Dawn had become something new, something beyond both species. The Valari flagship, the Vexora, locked onto them with every cannon. Calexis shouted through open channels, furious and afraid, demanding they surrender. Raylan and Serana, now fully linked, spoke as one voice. Calm, strong, unstoppable. No. And then they moved. The ironclad Dawn surged forward like a blade of light. It dodged every beam, weaved through every missile, and raced straight toward the heart of the enemy ship. The Vexora opened fire with everything it had, but the shots bent away, as if space itself refused to harm the Bondborn ship. As they closed in, Raylan and Serana found the exact weak point, the core hidden beneath armor layers. Their energy weapon, charged beyond capacity, fed by their shared soul. With one final command, they fired. Ebb! The beam tore through the darkness like a sun's scream. It hit the Vexora in the center, cracked its armor, and pierced deep into its core. For a second, everything was still. Then the Valari flagship exploded in a shockwave so large, even orbit shook. Pieces of the once invincible ship scattered like dust. The remaining Valari ships hesitated, then turned and fled. Without Calexis, without the Vexora, their courage broke. Earth was saved. The ironclad Dawn floated quietly among the stars, its hull cracked but glowing. Inside, Raylan and Serana collapsed together on the bridge floor, their bodies weak, but their spirits still linked. She looked at him with tired joy. "We did it," she whispered. He smiled, brushing her hair from her face. Together. All around them, cheers echoed through the ship. Earth had witnessed the impossible, not just victory, but unity. The joke that started it all had become the reason they survived. The war was over, but silence filled the bridge of the ironclad Dawn as it drifted above the earth, its lights dimmed and its systems quiet. Smoke still lingered in the halls, and the metal floor under Captain Raylan Cross felt cold beneath his knees as he cradled Serana in his arms. Her body was weak, her skin pale silver and marked by glowing cracks that pulsed faintly with fading energy. She had given everything to help him stop the Valari fleet, to save a world that was not hers. And now she barely breathed. Around them, the crew moved carefully, tending to the wounded, putting out small fires, and fixing what systems they could. No one spoke loudly, but at a great cost, and their captain sat motionless, whispering words no one could hear to the woman he once only joked about marrying. Raylan brushed a strand of white hair from Serana's forehead and felt something break inside him. He didn't care that she was Valari, that she had been born on the side of the enemy. She had stood by him when others ran. She had given him power, courage, and something far more valuable, hope. "You win," he whispered shakily, his voice raw. "I meant it. I'll marry you. I swear it." For a moment, there was only silence, the low hum of damaged systems, and the distant rumble of returning Allied ships. Then her lips moved, just a little. Her eyes opened, slow like dawn breaking across a quiet field. Her voice came out cracked. "But soft, you already did." Raylan laughed and cried at the same time, holding her tighter, not caring if anyone saw. Outside, Earth turned slowly beneath them, wounded but alive. Cities still burned, but people stood again. Emergency crews worked. Families gathered. Survivors looked to the sky and whispered the name of the ship that had saved them. The ironclad Dawn was no longer just a warship. It was a symbol, story, a legend that would be told for generations. In the weeks that followed, repairs were made, ships were rebuilt, new treaties were written. Council of Flame sent their surviving fleets to help Earth recover, And alien captains who once refused to even speak to humans now stood beside them. The threat of the Valari Empire was broken, its most powerful fleet destroyed, its leaders either dead or in hiding. At last, had a chance. On a quiet moon orbiting far beyond Earth's gravity, a small gathering took place. Soldiers, officers, alien allies, and old friends stood on the grass-covered plain near a crystal lake, surrounded by wildflowers and soft wind. A platform had been built there, simple but beautiful, made of steel from the ironclad dawn itself. Raylan wore a dark uniform with silver trim. Serana stood beside him, dressed in flowing white robes that shimmered with light, her eyes full of calm joy. They held hands, their fingers linked gently, as a human officer and an alien elder stood before them. No long speeches were given, no grand ceremonies, just a promise. A vow between two people who had once been enemies, who had fought side by side, who had changed each other in the galaxy. When Serana smiled, it was the same smile she had given the first time Raylan joked about marriage. Only now it was stronger, warmer, full of truth. And when he said, "I do," the sky above seemed to shine a little brighter. After the ceremony, music played. Laughter returned. For the first time in what felt like years, there was no fear in the air only. Peace Raylan stood with Serana near the edge of the lake as the sun set behind the hills. She leaned her head on his shoulder, and he wrapped his arm around her. Neither spoke for a long time. They didn't need to. They had survived the worst, defeated the impossible, and found something greater than victory love. What had begun as a careless joke had become the bond that saved a world, a warship, and a man who thought he had nothing left to fight for. And in that moment, as the stars slowly appeared overhead and the soft music faded into the breeze, Raylan knew that truth, some legends aren't born in fire or fury, but in quiet moments, small smiles, and promises whispered when no one else is listening.